Welcome to the Team EF Coaching Cycling Performance Podcast, where we take information from the highest level of sport and make it accessible for all cyclists. I'm your host, Zack Morris, and today I'm sitting down with a pretty interesting guest, somebody who's lived on all sides of the sport of cycling as an athlete himself, as a DES, and now wearing and doing many things throughout the team. The technical title is Technical Operations Manager, but like every employee at EF, Mr. Andreas Klier, who I'm very excited to have on the show, does a lot of things at EF Pro Cycling. Andreas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Yeah, so I have been looking forward to this podcast for a couple of months now. I know we had talked back maybe in the summer about doing a show, and we never got around to it, but now we have the chance, so it's great. We're sitting here together for the listeners at the Girona team camp, where we're kicking things off. New team this year, addition to the women's team, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. What do you think? How do you think everything's going so far, Mr. Andreas?
I mean, as you already pointed out, when you reached out asking for, let's make a podcast, it's not that I'm a person who jumps in the air and say, yeah, let's do that, right?
Yeah.
But somehow I saw left and right a few things from you, and I like them, right?
Okay.
Do those things secretly behind the scenes, watching other people. And thought actually I missed here or there an email because there was somehow no follow-up. So when I heard that we're going to do it here, I thought, great, let's do that, yeah? And coming back to the second part of your question, or the main part, now with two teams in one, I would say even that we only had like 3-4 days now, yeah, it is not two teams anymore. It feels like one team, right? Here and there, it's a little bit more work, obviously, because there's plenty of new impressions for the young riders coming in on the male side. The female side is, completely new. So ways of communication are difficult to find out to begin with, but I can't see that anybody passes here the hotel or anybody passes here while we are having dinner and says, "Oh, that's a male team and a female team." It's one team that worked quite well, I have to say. Without it, we had to force it. I believe it came natural, and which speaks for the character for both sides, right? Great people, great team.
I think it was awesome the first couple of days, watching everybody's body language change in the dinner room. So just for the listeners, we're all eating dinner, everybody, all the staff, all the riders in the same room. And the first couple of nights, the body language at the tables was a little bit stiff. The males didn't know the female riders, and it was a whole getting to know each other process. Now, just 2 days later, it seems like everybody's friends already, and it's pretty cool.
I get the same feeling, yeah. And there's also no difference in the staff of both level teams, right? So a mechanic from a female team helps, a man rider out here outside on the parking plot before we leave, and other way around. So I have to say this came naturally. Of course, this was the goal, but not always you reach your goal in life, as we all know.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. But that worked out brilliantly so far. And I think it's a good start into 2024.
So, Andreas, you raced in the World Tour. How many years did you race? Do you remember?
I believe it was 18.
Quite a few. And you did quite a few Grand Tours, right?
Oh, yeah.
How many?
I only did 2 or 3 times the Tour, and only once the Giro in 99. It was horrible. Really a nice race, don't get me wrong, but it was a horrible experience.
Was it cold? Rainy?
No, it was just... No, actually, I was just too fat, I think. Right? I just could not follow. And I think I did 16 times the Vuelta, but you have to check it, but I think so. Because in that time, it was this old school thought, if you go long into the season with quite an effort, you have an easier start into the winter season when we started to train for the classics, which was for many years the aim to be good.
Right. So what was your favorite race when you were racing?
It was Flanders, and it was Flanders actually.
Has it changed now on the other side from a management perspective? Is it still your favorite race?
Yeah, I did not like Roubaix. Of course, I knew the history and but it just came down to the fact that I made the split maybe 4 or 5 times to go with the real ones, right? The good ones with the guys actually who won the bike race then in the end of the day. So it was the right side of the game, and I always ran out of energy. Like I totally lost it the last 40K basically.
It's a long race.
This never changed. So I could not say I like that race because I was just not good enough. Flanders, it was different. But now, coming back to your questions, in the car, I have to say, Roubaix is by far the coolest.
Really?
Really cool.
What makes it so cool?
It's like you go out of the car post race, knowing or not knowing if your rider finished 3rd or 5th or right. Just say, so what's the result?
Right.
And you're cross-eyed and you're tired, and it takes everything out of you, and you get back the feeling. Not that you raced yourself, obviously, right? But once you jump in the car, go to the airport, right? Go in the airport hotel, waiting for your flight next day. You sit at the dinner table and just think, what a day, and you feel still exhausted, and it takes a lot, and it's difficult to describe what's going on inside the car, but you're more or less not looking on the street. Don't get me wrong, I'm not driving, right? So I'm sitting next to the driver. I'm kind of reading and getting info in the ear from somebody who sits at home, and it tells me what he sees on TV, and right. So it's not a surprise if after a race somebody from the team would say, "Hey, didn't you see me with the wheel?" or something like that. Right. And you just say, "We are sorry, but all 3 of us couldn't see you," for example, or it's intense.
Just chaos. Andreas, one of the main reasons I wanted to sit down and talk to you is because you're involved in so many different areas of the team, and I think that it's kind of a cool story. Not only are you managing riders and their expectations on race day and throughout the week and on many different levels, but you're also developing products with the brands and are very involved. You probably work very closely with Peter Shep in developing products. We just saw the new Aero helmet that you had worked really hard on. Aero Road helmet, sorry, let me specify, from POC. And it seems like you and Shep were really in a lot of ways the key to developing that helmet with POC. Where did this development side of product come in with you, and how has that process been going?
I believe people who knew me as a cyclist pre-2010, they would never believe that I'm actually now went into this area, and I'm really like proper interested in product development and aero features and marginal gains, all of that stuff. I was one of the riders in the past, the classic rider who is small-minded and not open at all.
Okay.
I guess this did hold me back or held me back from maybe here or there a victory. In the end of the day, long story short, people from the past probably wouldn't realize what I'm doing now. Now that you said that I'm there in the product development, that's what I really love. I do love Roubaix, sitting in the car. I love it when we do a mountain stage in the Tour, and Dani Martinez in the time won, and it was sort of planned, but in cycling a plan 80% of the time doesn't work out. That day it did. It gives you something. But on the other side, I love having talks now about something which might happen 2026, right?
Yeah.
Or as you pointed out, the new Procene Air helmet. That's just going to be a game changer. And full stop. you will see in 2 years, because it takes a while to develop something like that, everyone in the peloton will have something similar.
Right.
This year we're going to be the only team. The heat management around that helmet, to be a little bit more specific around that product, will be the key to or use it or not. This answer we still don't have.
Right.
So that's going to be, the tipping point, yes or no. Fact is, it's very fast, very comfortable. I think it's a success story. I think it's a good thing.
Oh yeah,
proper good one.
I tried it on. I
good.
walked up to the entire POC staff and was like, make sure I'm on the list
Yes,
of the first people that receives this helmet.
It is, 4 or 5 years ago, I pushed through that we ride tubeless on time trial bikes. We were the first team who did it.
Yeah.
And from the very first race onwards, you could see the numbers, right? But in that time, 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't know what 5 watts is on rolling resistance or 18 watts, right?
Right.
I thought, wow, okay, yeah. But then you saw the results and you thought, whoa, okay, 3 people top 10. Next TT, 4 people top 15. So what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the athletes are always training hard and look at the nutrition, and they do their athlete thing.
Yeah.
They are pros, so that's one part. But that we then made such a big jump was thanks to this tubeless setup in that time.
Right.
And we obviously got copied very fast.
Yes.
And we thought, what's the next thing, right? So tubeless on road racing, that's not going to be easy. So I remember me standing while we still had rim brakes.
Okay.
With tubeless wheels, let him then explode because of heat. So I reached out to a company in Belgium who makes a machine which basically has a pedal like a piano.
Right.
Push on it, the thing spins. Nowadays you would use it to bed in a disc brake, I guess.
Okay.
Right? You hold your front wheel in, brake it, and other way around.
Okay.
In that time we had rim brake. I ordered that machine.
Okay.
Took 10 wheels, pushed, got the rim hot, waited how hot it can be without measuring, just from time. And it's just, So you said, right, we still have some work. But we got from there towards where we are now, where now the whole peloton is. It was a process, obviously. But I'm also sure that we were the first who were riding tubeless in road racing.
Becoming a mad scientist, Mr. Klier.
Yeah, because my seeing that letting wheels explode also obviously points out the danger. Right?
Of course.
So I went to Vittoria and said, can't we invent like an airbag or something, right? Or like a seat belt in the car.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like something like that. And we had longer discussions, Vittoria and our side. And half a year later, Tommaso works for Vittoria, where I have a very good relationship with. He came up with the first prototype, basically material from air, whatever you call that, economical part business for aircraft.
Right.
A material with, if it's in a vacuum, it's basically increasing. You take the air out, and it's decreasing, right?
Okay. In density.
Correct.
Right.
Sorry, my English is not,
That's fine.
And so we tried it, and then we tried to build something that we can see it visible, right? How that actually looks and how small does it get.
So that's the insert.
Correct. The end result is the insert. So the important thing is it's not allowed to touch any part of the tire, because otherwise the rolling resistance is overboard, right?
Right.
So processes are, I wouldn't even say slow. I think they need their time. So did the helmet. 4 years ago, Zack from Marke said, come on, can you just please try once a TT helmet on a road bike? just to check it, right? We said, whoa, okay. And that's where it started.
Right.
And now we have it.
I mean, that's such a beautiful thing, actually, that you just said. Like, I've kind of reached that point, I think, this year, where I've been like, good things actually need the time.
Correct.
Right? Sometimes you can do things as fast and rush them and get things done, but good things really need the time. And when I put that aero helmet on, I was checking all the details. Okay, how do the sunglasses snap on the back? Because sometimes you see these new prototypes and like they just have one ridiculous feature that ruins the entire product, right? And it doesn't work. And so it was really interesting to put that helmet on and be like, okay, I want this right now, right? And then I was talking to Magnus from POC, and he was saying that he could see, and this, I'd imagine this idea came from you and Shep, but he was saying that how the team might consider using that helmet would be in more of a formation around a GC rider in a peloton. So can you speak to a little bit about how that might work? How the guys with the aero helmet in a group might be able to use it to get an advantage for the GC rider?
That's actually always the question with every new product we try to develop or we developed. It's the same principle as heavy, high, tubeless wheels 3 years ago. So you have a strong rider, a big rider, a helper, who might or might not survive the first climb. You give him the heaviest, fastest setup, and you give your leader the lightest setup, the best weapon to win then in the end the uphill final. If he's sitting in the drag, you save X watts. Obviously, with the watts comes the energy you save. The smoother that setup is throughout the team, similar to a TTT.
Right.
The smoother that setup is, the smoother is the run-in for person X who should get the flowers.
Right.
That said, it's the same thing with the helmet. As I said a while ago, we don't know the heat factor. We literally don't know. What I know now already is that the riders like it because they rode yesterday with it. They're gonna ride today with it. I had good not only good, I had actually very good feedback, so I'm not scared at all anymore. We will see how we implement it. It's difficult to answer. It's the same if you would have asked me 4 years ago, when will you ride tubeless and when not? I probably would have said, okay, the difference of the wheel set is 380 gram. Doesn't make sense for Rigoberto Urán, so let's just give it to Jens Kökelere and those guys to keep him out of the ride. Right. In the end of the day, everybody rode then tubeless.
Okay.
So I was wrong. Right. So I can't see a climber riding the aero helmet for Alpe d'Huez. Will it happen in 5 years? Not so sure, because they climb with 28 per hour, right? And on 28 per hour, if you make the calculation, you're probably going to save 3 to 4 watts or whatever it's going to be.
Right.
Going in that direction to performance-orientated stuff, this always includes a little bit the position.
Yeah.
Position climbing and being aero is 2 different pair of shoes most of the time.
Yeah.
Because of pulling and pushing, right? I don't know what the future will bring, but I want to be part of it, if that makes sense.
But what's really interesting there, and I'll just add one thing to what you said. I don't think we will see that until Ben Healy decides that he wants to win Alpe d'Huez. Then we'll definitely see the aero helmet on Alpe d'Huez. But one of the interesting things behind the story here is you looked at more than just the helmet, and we saw this with, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Magnus Kort was one of the first riders you really started to stretch out across the bike and get a little bit lower and longer in his position. And you've actually changed the position on the bike with, I think, several riders now on the team. I think Ben Healy would be another iteration of that. But why is the important, like you just the position so important, like you just mentioned, you know, on the climbs? What are you looking for in the position? What are the key things that are making the big differences right now?
I think to keep it simple, more narrow and longer is faster than wide and short,
Right.
obviously. There comes a tipping point that you can't hold it anymore. Then you go back from that tipping point.
And that tipping point is like fatigue, like you're tired throughout the race?
Or back pain.
Okay.
Or the angle from your hip while pedaling,
So
if you close it too much.
So what happens there?
So if I would give you today a 15 stem on your bike, right, and you ride away, and the first 5 kilometers you just heading down here out of the hotel, kind of, you just roll away. Yeah. After 2 hours, if I give you a call and say, so how are things, right?
Yeah.
You're just gonna have pain here, left and right.
Yeah.
After a 6-hour ride, you would come back and say, I'm not so sure, right? But
Right.
and then if we would throw you into a wind tunnel, yeah, or if we would scan you and take a look at the angles of your leg, we could actually have your answer you gave us on your phone or after the ride. We could have given you that answer already beforehand because it was too far away. The grip, whatever, how you usually take your handlebar, right, was too far away. But the idea is, or we figured out, 2 centimeters higher and longer is much faster than going lower.
Okay, so stay up a little bit higher and go longer.
Yeah, the people we stretch are sitting much higher than they used to.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Yeah, because I had somebody I met at like Masters National Championships. He was on a Cannondale System 6, and he just had it really short. And I was like, no, man, you got to look at Magnus. Like, look at this position. This is why you're not feeling good on this bike. You got to stretch it out. And I was showing him the pictures of Magnus, and he was like, okay, I'm switching everything.
The thing is, the stack height is the key.
Okay. Really
Because the
fascinating.
stack height will have an influence not only on how far you can go to the front, but also how much power you can produce in the back.
Right.
Because obviously the higher you go,
Yeah.
the more you open that angle. And if you then go to the front, you still have kind of an open angle. So
You still need pretty good flexibility because I think if you looked at Magnus's back, he was super aero.
it's
Right.
very individual,
Yeah.
right? Both you and I can't ride as Ben Healy can ride all day long.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't have to sit here and work. Right?
Still be right.
If I would have done this 18 years long, then yeah.
So day to day, what are your rules? Like, what are you doing day to day with the team? I'd imagine that like the off season, you're kind of working on more product development stuff, and then as the season kind of kicks off, you just get so busy managing all the races. You're on the road a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how do you manage this day to day flow of being the guy in charge of so many things behind the scenes?
I mean, I have that only works because Charlie Vigelius, who's responsible for actually the DS planning, does more or less know my schedule, my annual schedule, my overall schedule. That I say, okay, in March I make the pre-order for 2020 for the season afterwards. So this year in March, 24 in March, I'm gonna order the stuff for 25
Already
right
in March.
So roughly, the frames, the handlebars, the stem, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get the feedback from each of the companies. We're gonna develop new Vittoria tires, and when do you try? And you should try, or they come in 2 months, or right. So there's an interaction from there towards a month before the tour. In the background, Peter's fine-tuning some stuff, and then a month for the tour, we maybe try or present something new, which we then have in the tour. Post-tour, I have to have finalized order for everything.
Wow. That's pretty early when you think about it, right? Like we still haven't signed riders sometimes until September.
Correct. And with the sponsors we have, they're obviously very helpful with that. So if we have late changes, we always can adapt, but the rough schedule has to be already ordered quite early. So that's what I do. So after the tour, I'm actually Monday I stay in Paris and go to some museums.
I've been seeing that on your Instagram.
Tuesday, I'm doing the same. Wednesday, I go home, sit in my office.
Okay.
Every year the same, and then it's 2 weeks full work.
Okay.
once that is done, I dive immediately into product development stuff. I love it because it's also the right time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're waiting for products, right? And obviously and the sponsor, the company who supports us, also doesn't run around with 200 frames in the pocket. So it's always a daily. It's basically a daily conversation we're having. When are they coming? Are they coming on time? Is every size there? If not everything is coming, how many of this size, and so on. In the background, we do obviously some bike fits. So again, changes will happen. It's quite complex, the whole thing. And this year, for example, 2 days before this camp, so let's say a week ago, I could switch off. And that was fine. Then I had 2 relaxed days. Now I'm walking here through the hotel and listening left and right. What's good, what's wrong.
Yeah, it's pretty
and,
stimulating.
I'm going to do this direction Christmas, and then I go skiing. And then, I don't know, I hope I have an easy week, the first January week, and then it's training camp again, and then we move on.
Yeah. So I think for me, what I love so much about what you and Shep and JV's pretty innovative guy too as well. He'll support the good ideas, right? What I love about what you guys are doing is you're really pushing the brands to innovate, right? And make better products, make faster products. And without guys like you, the industry can kind of get away with just marketing, just selling stuff that sells. And it's really, really cool to know that there are people who have given their life to the sport in one way or another.
That's true.
Continuing to push the needle, right? Continuing to develop things. And of course, the first place it's going to meet is the pro level, right? We're trying to win the biggest races in the world. But as ironic as it sounds, like our athletes in our coaching program, like their local masters race means as much to them as the Tour de France stage does for a young rider. You know, it's everything. Yeah. And so it's really cool to know that like the brands and products that we're using internally are being pushed, in the right direction.
And maybe it's also a good chance to say thanks to the sponsors, to be honest, because you can push as much as you want. If they close the door, then nothing's gonna happen. I believe the collab between, name them, POC, FSA, Cannondale, Victoria, and Co. And Peter and myself is a very good one, a very healthy one. So I'm allowed to say what I think, and somehow, they swallow it and they say okay, or they are absolutely allowed is the wrong word, but they absolutely can say no, which happens very often, right? Because so the collab, the interaction is a very healthy one, and always an ongoing one. And I think that's why in the last years we came left and right a little bit with better things than our competitors. We're still not there, and we never will be, right? Which is fine. I'm not even 50, so I can do this a few more years.
So for anybody that doesn't know, if you've managed to find Mr. Klier on Instagram, he is quite the art buff. It seems like you spend a lot of time, at museums looking up different art, and the stuff you post on your Instagram seems to mean a lot to you. When you see things, it seems to be a little bit deeper. And so one of the questions I had for you is, do you think you're at the point in your life where you're kind of painting your own masterpiece in cycling?
I don't know if you know, but most of the photos I post are actually my paintings. So
I did not know that.
In the night when I can't sleep because, I'm waiting for whatever, which screw or insert, or rather than just go in the toilet and go to bed again, I just go in my garage and paint. So it started as fun, and I never had interest for culture in whatever which way. And 5 years ago, I started to paint. It's fun, just actually a stress relief.
Right.
And my daughter was laughing, my wife was laughing, and as an ex-sportsman, I said, okay, right?
Yeah.
One day I'm gonna hang in the biggest gallery here in Mallorca. It's like a proper one, like a big one.
Yeah.
They were laughing even harder, right? And yeah, last year I had a solo exhibition, so they emptied like the whole gallery, and that was the first time ever since I won Gent-Wevelgem, right? Actually 20 years later, kind of, that I was proud on myself.
Wow.
So standing there and 250 people coming, and and that's my thing. I sold quite a lot, and I still can't believe it. And there's a few I will never give away. I decided that already.
Okay.
Even if I had a buyer, that's just not going to happen. And this gives you a nice feeling, and that's my stress relief. Very often I'm sitting there at 3:00 in the night or something, doing this.
So those paintings are very meaningful because what comes out of you in those moments are an expression of what you're feeling. And so
very much
somebody can purchase those expressions. That's a pretty cool thing sometimes. Maybe not all of them, but some of those feelings are up for sale.
Some of them, yes. Yes. And I think the thing here is I have to be so precise in my work. If we talk about product development. And once we hit the road, it goes about seconds, and how can we save here or what and there 5 gram, and it's so precise. But if I paint, I never learned it. I had no clue, so just take a color and that's it. And there's no right and no wrong. And if I don't like it, just go the next evening in there and just paint over.
Yeah,
it's quite simple.
The whole painting isn't ruined with a flat tire.
Correct. And there's no start and there's no end, to be totally honest. From the moment on you see it and you say, yep, that's it. Just going to put it to the corner where the others are and just take a fresh canvas. And
that's amazing. I'm so much more a fan now knowing that all of these paintings are yours. Because I was wondering, I'm like, man, Andreas really loves these paintings. And I don't understand all of them. Like, I'm not as into art. And so I was like, man, I know nothing about art. When I see your paintings, I'm like, I just don't get it. But I know these mean a lot to him. The way you post the pictures, you can see a lot in a photo, And so that's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, it's my hobby.
Yeah, but that's awesome. So there's one question left that I want to ask you. We talked a little bit about it being, a new team in a lot of ways. A lot of young riders on both sides of it, male and female riders. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing any people that were kind of coming up on the cusp of breaking through and winning a lot of races last year? I know in 2022, everybody kind of saw Ben Healy coming through, and he told me straight to my face, he's like, dude, I just figured it out. At the end of the season, like, I just figured out how I'm going to win. And he came out next year, and he was incredible in 23. Are you seeing anybody that's got a lot of potential to break through next year?
Everyone from the men's side, from the new riders,
I agree.
Including Rui Costa, who is like,
I agree. If he's motivated,
love his style of cycling. I don't want to say I'm a fan because I have to work with him, but still I'm a fan, right? Like you are a fan of Ben, or right? So
incredible.
Let's just say we are fans.
Yeah.
The young generation riders have incredible numbers. Talking about bike tests, right? But obviously, road racing includes much more factors. They still have to learn. I don't think that nowadays in modern cycling you have plenty of time to learn. To be totally honest. However, maybe let's hope I'm wrong. Maybe they don't have to learn. Maybe they just click in the pedal and do exactly what we actually in the background think they can.
Okay.
If so, then that would be quite mind-blowing. If not, we just, work with the nutritionists and whoever is in the team to fine-tune and make them better. And I'm not worried about them not having a career here or in another team in the future.
Right.
They are I don't want to say good kids because right, but they have the same age as my son, so they are good kids,
Right.
and very strong, very very strong. I just hope the best for them. If it's for here the next 2 years, or if it's then, further down the road, I think you should always get what you deserve, and I assume they worked hard to get here. I hope they work hard now in the winter, and then I hope they get what they deserve inside our jersey.
Yeah, I agree. But I've had Ben Healy on the podcast. I got to know Archie Ryan a little bit on the podcast, and these young guys, all seemingly friends. I mean, it just looks like such a dynamic opportunity for these guys to get together, like it's a Sunday morning group ride, and work together, and get that that environment going where everybody's friends, everybody's got a little bit of a brotherhood going, and really be impactful at the pointy end of these hard races. And we've seen it now, right? Like with younger guys like Remco and Pidcock and so on and so forth coming through and being a force at the end of these really hard races. So do you see the same thing I'm seeing, or where are you at with it?
Absolutely. I think it's a generation thing also, right? They are very good in expressing what they want and what they need.
Interesting.
They are very good informed because of everything you need. You actually have inside your pocket with the telephone. So
we are superheroes now.
It's I think it's a generational thing, because I can see it also with my son, who has the same age, who isn't a cyclist. But when it comes down to cycling, they are not as loose as it seems to be when you have a chat here on the sofa with them.
Oh, they didn't seem very loose.
No,
it was
right.
Archie did well. He was pretty relaxed. Yeah. But what's funny is I was chatting with Ben on the road, and super relaxed. Just one of the boys out there on the road. But you get him here in the podcast studio, and you're right, a little bit more uptight, a little bit more reserved.
Once they hit the road, I do know that they are professional, even if they didn't race professional races.
Mm-hmm.
Although I saw actually Archie in the Tour of Luxembourg this year. And if Ben wouldn't have won the stage, then it's on him, right? So I said, hey, I actually went up to him and said, listen, if you would have done that, I would have just pumped up your tires with water the whole season this year, right? Good guys, very good characters, strong characters.
Yeah. They
know exactly what they want in that age. So that's the right attitude, in my opinion, to be a pro. Because we're not talking about, like you said, a Sunday group ride or whatever, which small race around the corner here. Mm-hmm. Talking about pro sport, there's obviously a lot of money involved. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of commitment involved. Mm-hmm. There's goals set from the top to, throughout all departments.
Yeah.
And they are one part of it to reach which goal is set.
Yeah.
And they have to work as hard as the masseur.
Yeah.
And in combination with then the mechanic and Peter and the sporter and so on, we are able to, but they are one part of it. Obviously the important part, because they have to pedal. However, if you look at the whole, depends how you see it, actually. What's important, what isn't. They are one part.
Yeah. Well, the reason for me the personal character side of things is so important is because I always say to myself, those 21-year-old, 22-year-old kids, they have to get in the peloton and take on a 28-year-old Andreas Klier in his prime, grown man, ready to break your soul, right? Not this Andreas Klier who's sitting here painting in his garage to relieve his stress on Saturday nights. We're talking about a different beast, right? And so what the reason why I ask you these kind of questions about what do you really think about these kids is because when the swords come out and blood is all over the battlefield, these kids have to bring it home. And that's what I saw in Ben Healy in 2022 at the end of the season. I said, okay, this kid can really go for it. he's really got it. And I see it in Archie Ryan, right? He's a smart, well put together kid. But at the end of the day, when things really get going and you're in the trenches and crawling your way out, he can fight, you know? And I'm wondering if it's just those two, or do you see that same thing in the other guys? Like, who's got it? Who's going to be the breakthrough rider in 2024?
I say Markel and Jack.
I'm gonna start watching them.
Yeah. Actually, all of them, right? I don't. But yeah, that's how I see it.
Fascinating. All right. Well, you have a super busy day. Andreas, thank you so much for carving out the time and making this podcast possible. It was a real pleasure to speak to you and learn a little bit more about you.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, guys, be sure to give a thumbs up on this podcast. Set it as a favorite. Give us all the support you can. Helps us reach more people and inform more cyclists about all of these hidden gems in the sport of cycling. Till next time, I'm your host, Zack Morris, and we'll see you again soon.